50th anniversary of something that pretty much changed all of our lives. And DragonCon, 30th anniversary of DragonCon, is really happy that we have the flagship individual of that iconic series here. So without any further ado, please, let's have a nice DragonCon welcome for Mr. William!
I haven't even started yet. Wait. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I don't know about you, but my morning has just started. Imagine getting up, okay, I'm ready, and face 2,000 people. And I don't know what I'm going to say. That's an actor's nightmare, you know. You stand in front of a crowd, or you're in a play, it's opening night tomorrow, and you're sleeping, and every actor has the dream where they're on stage and they can't remember the words. Of course, they're also naked. You're naked and you can't remember the words. That's the actor's dream. The other actor's dream is they've got a fluorescent tape here to avoid falling off the stage. Brad Paisley is a friend of mine. He fell off the stage. Ben Folds is a friend of mine. He fell off the stage. I am not going to fall off the stage. So, how to start this off? Shall I tell you a little bit about what I've been doing recently?
Yeah!
Thank you for that. I will then tell you what I've been doing recently. This is the 50th anniversary, birthday. 50 years. 50! I can't stand it. 50 years ago, Star Trek went on the air.
And I was this little tiny boy. I played Captain Kirk, and I was only 7. You can't imagine. So I'm 57.
Years gone by so quickly. Passage of time. Time! There's nothing more important than time. Without time, two things. You need your health, so you can say, oh my God, the passage of time. But the other aspect is how quickly time does go by. Your perception of time when you're young is that time goes slowly. Oh my God, I can't wait till I'm a teenager. I can't wait for my 16th birthday. I can't wait to get out of school. I can't. But that's just perception. In fact, inexorably, tick-tock, tick-tock. And finally one day, like this morning, you wake up and you look in the mirror and you think, who is that? Who's me? Time. So, what have I been doing? I'm in the middle of doing a special called The Truth is in Our Stars. And I've been talking to great physicists all over the world about this very subject of time. They say time has no end. They say space-time is all one thing. I still don't understand. I mean, I asked them. Stephen Hawking? I talked to him last week. I was in Cambridge. I talked to Stephen Hawking. So 13.8 billion years ago, this galaxy shone a photon of light. Now, among the inexplicable things that we ordinary people don't understand is a photon can be a particle and it can be a wave at the same time. How is that possible? I don't know. And you know what? They don't know either. The most incredible thing is, I keep talking to these guys, and I say, explain to me, why space-time? Time-space? I never remember which comes first. One guy said, well, you don't say tie bow, you say bow tie. I guess it's space-time, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, space-time. It's time-space, so you're nodding your head yes, but it's time-space. No, it's space-time. But what does it mean? It means that in a cube, you have a cube that's with length, and width, 3 dimensions, and the 4th dimension is time. I got that. I can understand that something passes through a cube and you locate it 0.5 seconds into the cube. I got that. And then they start talking about the 5th dimension, and the 6th, and the 7th, to the 11th dimension. What does that mean? We can't understand it. Stephen Hawking, as I'm sure you all know, is constrained in a wheelchair. He's got ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. It's given another name, but it has the same effect. He's lost all control of his muscles, with the exception, I believe this is true, with this exception. So, as you know, he sits in his chair, slumped over, the brightest, bluest eyes that track you everywhere. He's able to arch his eyebrow, which signifies yes, and a twitch of his mouth, which signifies no. And on his cheek is a little wand, which he moves by twitching his cheek muscle. And he's able to guide that little wand to type out, like you had one finger on a computer. So he spells C-A-T. Then he's able to put the mouse,
Cursor.
the cursor, thank you. These are terms I don't... I want you to be very careful of this man here. So he moves the cursor around and he presses a thing and the computer says the word, like ant or cat. Really phenomenal. So, one of the brightest minds, equivalent of Einstein's mind, who can't speak except for this computer. And I spent the afternoon with him. We had sent in the questions so he could prepare the answers. And so we were waiting for him to come into the room, and he was preparing another remark, and then he came in, and I sat beside him, so we're here, and I could see the computer and see him, and then they asked me to ask him the questions, the exact questions that I had sent him, to read the exact questions so there would be no variance, because he had already prepared his answers. So I was looking across there, reading the card for the question, and I could see him when he would...
Yeah, you're there.
You know the way I was ready? I was ready. I was prepared. Had he come after me, I swung him over my shoulder, and I would have put my foot on it. So he had his prepared answers, which was fine, but then he had said that he wanted to ask me some questions. So I said, and What question do you have for me, Professor Hawking, Dr. Hawking? And his question to me was,
Did I have your autograph?
no, but close. What are your favorite episodes? Is that a while? So, you know, when somebody asks me, like, what are your favorite episodes of something I did 50 years ago, I don't know what hotel I'm in this morning. So to try and remember something, I hate to look at myself, so I haven't seen so many of the Star Trek episodes that I've been in, let alone the seven iterations of Star Trek. I've never seen them. I've got buddies on The Next Generation. I did a documentary about The Next Generation. I've never seen the full thing. So when you ask me my favorite episodes, I have two choices. When somebody, you can imagine how often I get that question. And I have two answers. One is the truth, which is what I just told you. I hardly remember, I can't do that. And then the other answer is also the truth, but I have to call up what it was Star Trek had great stories. Many of the ideas were presented to us by great science fiction writers, among them Isaac Asimov, for example. So Mr. Asimov would present an idea, I suspect, and then our writers would create a screenplay, because a television screenplay has a form to it, and these fiction writers don't follow that form. So, my favorite episodes would be those brilliant ideas, like the guy who was half white and half black, and the other guy's half black here and half white, and the stupidity of race hatred and all. Those great ideas, including like the triples, where things grow unchecked, or that yearning that we all have to go back in time to I wish I hadn't said that, I wish I hadn't done that. You go back, I wish I hadn't married her, you know. So you yearn to go back in time to stop, to prevent what you did. We all feel that way. So those stories appeal to our senses, and those are the most powerful science fiction stories because they're based on something human. So that's the answer I gave him here. And then I did something that was unexpected. I said, now I've told you my favorite. What are your favorite stories, Dr. Hawking? So laboriously, he would write, you know, and I'm looking at the computer, and the cameras are all around us, and you can imagine it takes about 15 minutes for him to write out a sentence. But then I realized that, like a great actor, you know, if you say in a play to a great actor, to somebody performing a role, all right, what do you think? And the actor goes, look, you see, you're all listening to me. What's he going to say? What's he going to say? So I'm looking at the screen. What's he going to say? What's he going to say? What are your favorite? What are your favorite, Dr. Hawking? And I'm, and I'm listening. And it's like a great actor. He's like, wow, what's he going to say? And then he says, anything to do with black holes. Because that's his discipline. That's one of the things he has written about. Black holes, whirlpools of energy, sucking in all the material around it. And it's so incredible that these astrophysicists, they're working out of their mind. Their instrument, Dr. Kaku. I said, what? He said that everything is musical. It's all mathematics and musical out there. I said, well, what's your instrument? He pointed to his head. Inside my head, I get up in the morning and I start thinking. And this is an able-bodied man. So you can imagine Dr. Hawking, just inside his head, all this stuff going on. And laboriously he tries to communicate these things. Like the collision of black holes. So he at one time said, black holes suck in all the information and nothing comes out. And then one day, some years later, he said, not so long ago, he said, wait a minute, I made a mistake. Information does come out. What are you talking about, doctor? And then, with new instruments that came online just recently, in a few weeks after these measurement instruments, these instruments could measure gravitational waves, came online, boom, they showed a gravitational wave that was the result of two black holes colliding. And that's the kind of thing that's going on. These physicists act like science fiction writers. They imagine things and then mathematically try to prove it. Frequently, they disprove what they thought to go on. The line between science fiction and science fact on this kind of science, way out there, is they're imagining. This is the way I think it should be. That's what Einstein did. This is what Stephen Hawking is doing. I have met some of the most wonderful people with this kind of imagination. So the special is called The Truth is in Our Stars, and it'll be out at the end of the year. In the meantime, talking about science fiction, I've got a book called Zero G coming out in the next week or two. FBI in space 50 years from now. It's great fun. Zero G, so don't miss it. Well, that's my way of saying good morning. And if you have questions, I'd be delighted to start to answer.
Mr. Shatner.
Yes, I have the same problem. He'll come running up to you momentarily.
We're going to take questions over here, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for making time for us. I know you've had a crazy schedule this week.
No, I'm here to do that. I don't know. On the contrary, I am so grateful to see all of you here. It's the exact opposite. I thank you for being here. It's a privilege for me to stand up here and try and amuse you for an hour. Go ahead. What's your question?
Hi! Oh my gosh, I watched you when I was
What is that?
My aunt got me interested in watching Star Trek.
Wait a minute. I can't hear you.
My aunt, she got me interested in watching Star Trek.
This is called a microphone.
Okay.
And you've got to speak right into it.
Okay. My aunt, she got me interested in watching Star Trek.
Oh, we
when I
got to
was
thank
like
her.
5. She's right
Oh,
over
hi,
there.
Aunt. Okay, what's your question?
If Kirk had ended up with one of the women in Star Trek, who would you have wanted him to end up with?
Oh! You know, I often wondered that myself. I think, given Captain Kirk's proclivities, he'd like to have ended up with all of them. And may I add, frequently did. That's it? That's your question? A sexually tinged question early in the morning. What's your next, who else? Is there somebody over here? No, just there, huh? Just one microphone, one girl, and one eyes. Okay. We spare no expense. Oh, if you all line up. You didn't say that. Okay. What's the next question?
I wanted to talk about your show, Better Late Than Never.
I'm going to stand up for that. Did you see better? Have you been aware of Better Late Than Never? Thank you. Go ahead. What's your question?
So on the show, you guys have been surrogate grandfathers for a lot of people in the United States.
Surrogate grandfather? Oh, Lord.
Like myself, who was the first person in my family to be born in the United States, so culturally I don't have a grandfather figure I can relate to. So you four have been like grandfather figures. So I would like to know your advice to the millennial generation as they hit a crossroads in life.
My advice is don't listen to anybody. My advice is nobody knows anything. I mean, we don't know anything. We know nothing. You have to make your own decisions. It's up to you. Nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody can tell you what you want. Nobody can tell you where to vote. Nobody can do it on your own. Get your own opinion. Educate yourself. But better late than never. It was so much fun. So here comes Terry Bradshaw, George Foreman, Henry Winkler, and me. And we travel through Asia and all the ridiculous things that happened to us. I had a bucket list going in. I mean, Terry Bradshaw is 4-time Super Bowl winner. He wears those rings all the time. First of all, you see a hand, and then you see Terry Bradshaw. And George Foreman turns out to be, I thought of him as Buddha. He turned out to be the wise man. He would sit there still and silent some of the time, and wise. He's a preacher now, but he's the 2-time world champion. So over the month that we spent together, I fell in love with him. I mean, he's just one of the great human beings. But his history is extraordinary. So he's born in the rough parts of town, and he fights his way up, and he's a killer. He's an angry young man. I think he's 16. He wins the Golden Gloves. He's 17, 18. He's now in the heavyweight ranks, and he wins the heavyweight championship. He becomes a heavyweight champion. Killer. Yeah, I want to hurt people, he said. There was a time when I wanted to hurt them. Check out the smasher. Oh, look at this guy, really. Then he fights, I think I've got the sequence right, but anyway, the meaning is right. He fights Muhammad Ali, and he loses, and he's near death, and he's lying on a gurney in the dressing room, and he feels the presence of God. And God, he thinks he's dying, but God calls him back. He finds God. He spends the next 10 years as a preacher. 10 years into it, he's looking around at his family gathered to eat at dinner. And they're all named George, by the way. That's the darndest thing. And he says, oh yeah, they know their names. By the way, you call George? George. Kid answers. So he's looking around at this table full of people. And they're all doing this. They want to eat. George has to go back to work to feed his children. He starts to box again at the age of 40. I think it was the age of 40. And he wins the world championship again. Unprecedented. And then he retires and goes back to preaching. But deep inside, you never eradicate completely what's inside you. So one of my bucket lists was to get in the ring with George Foreman. I swear to God, I'm in the ring. I'm in Thailand. Okay, I'm bouncing around him, and then I give a fight. And he said, right fist caught. And I'm looking him in the eye, and I see from benign Buddha to killer 16-year-old. And he goes, boom! I stagger back, hit the rope, fall to the ground. Well, the other part of that bucket list was to catch a pass from George Foreman. So over the years, I used to play football. So over the years, you get a little stiff. So the bending down, it gets harder. Okay? So reaching for the ball, you're not fluidly reaching for the ball anymore. You're going, oh, come on. So there's film of me. The ball comes this way, go, oh, and drop it. Oh, and drop it. Finally, one day, I'm running for a pass, and he throws it, and I catch it, and it's all on film. I caught a pass from Terry Bradshaw. The third thing on my bucket list was Henry Winkler has to make me laugh. He's very funny, actually. He's a great guy. So he told me a joke, and I just broke up. So here's the joke, okay? It has nothing to do with science fiction or anything, but that's funny. So, a dear old lady, all wrinkled, and she's quite old and wrinkled. But she's very religious, and she prays to God. God, give me time to get some cosmetic surgery so I can look young. One more time, give me time, God. Give me time. And she feels she gets a signal. God says, you have time, my dear. So she goes to the cosmetic surgeon. She spends months in the hospital. Months go by, all the swelling goes down, and now she's back. She looks in the mirror. Wow, I can't believe how beautiful I am. She leaves the hospital. She waves. She crosses the street. She gets hit by a bus and dies. So she's up in heaven. And she sees God. She says, God, you said I had time. Why did you take me so quickly? And God said, oh my God, I didn't recognize you. That made me laugh, and I was here to present you that funny story. Which reminds me, last week I was in New York, and I did some stand-up comedy at the Gotham Comedy Club, and I forgot the routine. They wrote some jokes for me to say, and I worked on some. The only joke I can remember that I said, I was talking about old age and how old you feel, and the joke the guy wrote was, my wife yelled from upstairs. She said, Bill, come upstairs and make love to me. And I said, I can't do both. Ice water here. Or somebody peed on this.
Very cold pee.
So, what's the next? What are we doing here? What's the next one?
Good morning.
Why are you hesitating?
Thank you for being here so much. I have a question. For everything you've done in the past and what you're doing now, what do you enjoy more, science or science fiction?
Wow, what a great question. That's a great question. What do I enjoy? I don't know when I got old, but I'm old, okay? I hesitate to admit it to myself, really, more than anything else, because I'm so busy. I'm busy making documentaries, making films, being on stage. I'm going on tour again in a month. I'm doing this. I got books. I got I'm very busy. But what I love to do also is I read voraciously. I'm reading I'm reading two books right now. One is How Intelligent Birds Are. Turns out birds observe us, and especially the corvid family, the crows, they're highly intelligent, let alone the macaws and all that. We know they're intelligent. But all birds have an intelligence of some kind. Some are extraordinarily intelligent, and they're all standing around looking at us. They're observing your house and what your habits are, how they can feed themselves better. It's incredible how intelligent birds are. It's fascinating to read about. The other thing I'm reading about is the translation of the Bible from the time of Christ to today, but especially from beginning of AD to about 1000, somewhere around there, when a guy by the name of Tyndale was translating the Bible, and how the Bible came to England. And it's Barbara Tuchman she's dead now, was a great historian, and I love reading her. So I'm reading, I think it's called The Bible and the Sword, something like that. I'm reading both those books. So I'm getting this knowledge, like, wow, birds observing. Wow, Tyndale was burned at the stake because he aided the English church, the Church of England, Reformation, and at the same time, Cardinal, I think, Moore was being burned or put to death because he was trying to stop it. Two guys who had been arguing buddies over the Bible were put to death almost simultaneously in different countries. One in France, one in England, for opposite reasons, for helping and not helping. So I'm reading this extraordinary historical fact, and I'm thinking also, why am I acquiring knowledge? I'm going to die. I'm going to die with all that knowledge. What do I care? I'm going to die, I'm going to molder in the ground, and I know that birds are intelligent. What good is that going to do? But I can't help myself. So I keep acquiring knowledge. It's like putting money in the bank, you're going to die, and you don't have anybody to leave it to. I've got all this knowledge. So I'm laying it out on you. So, what do I like to do best? I love entertaining. I love acquiring knowledge. If I acquire knowledge, I can put it into fictional form and maybe entertain you with the knowledge that I acquire. Yeah? Got tired, did you? Never tired. Oh, let her have a turn. Okay, next question.
Good morning, Mr. Shatner.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you for recording the spot that you did for Star Trek The Ultimate Voyage. I edited that spot together as part of marketing that show in Charlotte, North Carolina, so thank you. My question was about your role in Judgment at Nuremberg. That was relatively early in your career, but just how was that for you as a young actor being part of a very socially relevant film for the early 60s?
Judgment at Nuremberg was a movie I made a long time ago with some really great filmmakers, Stanley Kramer and all, very socially conscious. Judgment at Nuremberg was the trial that they had after the Second World War of the Nazi bigwigs, the thugs that led the Nazi movement. They didn't believe in anything. All they believed in was acquiring power and wealth for themselves. They didn't believe in anything they espoused. They were thugs. And these thugs finally were arrested, put on trial, and American lawyers used the rule of law and evidence to arrest them and put them in jail, and in some cases put them to death. So the movie was about Nazis and how horrific the Nazis were, but in general, it made you think, how could we human beings, how could we humans who have Dr. Stephen Hawking on one side and Adolf Hitler on the other? I mean, how does that work? How is it possible that we have this reptilian brain where I don't even want to say bestial, because the beasts don't do this. We are such savages inside, deep inside, and we're such benign, beautiful, loving, generous, thoughtful, aware, empathetic beings on another level. Why can't that better level keep in check this horrific thing that's deep inside all of us? I don't know the answer to that. It's a mystery to all human beings. Why we have this thing inside us allows us to be capable of being these Nazi murderers and be saints who take care of people and care for somebody more than ourselves. To our detriment, so many people give to their own detriment, give to other people. That kind of self-sacrifice is the most beautiful part of the human nature, and yet it seems to, every so often, there's this uprising of the reptilian brain is the only thing I come up with. So that's what Judgment at Nuremberg did for me. There, when the cast was finally assembled, what I most vividly remember was they played for us film that was made by American filmmakers when they came into the camps. The terrible
Concentration camps.
camps that they made where they incarcerated all kinds of people, 5 million Jews, Catholics, everybody who didn't, who the Nazis thought were some kind of enemy, and they killed them and they burned them. There was film made of bulldozers scraping the bones and putting them into holes as though it were debris, as though, Atlanta underwater for a while, and then they scraped all the debris out of the streets and put it somewhere. That's what they were doing, scraping the debris that were human bodies before, people who loved and had children and led their lives like we do, like we are, human beings like us, lying formless and unknown, buried as though their lives had no meaning. That's what Judgment at Nuremberg did for me, and it's a lesson we all need to remember. Every so often we need to have that remember that we're burying our heads in the sand right now. Let me tell you, we're polluting the earth. We all know that. There's no question about change in climate, but things are poisoning because of so many people. We need to understand that the earth, Gaia, Mother Earth, needs help from all of us. That to say, well, it's 50 years down the road, it's happening. Tipping points have been reached. There's a terrible thing happening, as bad as anything that's ever happened in history. The atmosphere is changing. There's a chance that if we work quickly, we can stop the worst of it. It's up to all of us to have that voice and to tell our government and the governments, do something before our grandchildren, our children are lost. We're okay. We're okay for another 50 years. And then, Holocaust. You've got to think of the future. We've got, every one of our voices is important to remember. Just like Nuremberg and just like the Nazi Holocaust, 50 million people poisoning, and drowning. We can do something about it, but we got to do it now. Remember that. On that happy note,
Well, I want to ask you to take this to a little bit of a lighter subject.
a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard to
I
go
want to
down.
ask you about, well, first off, I didn't actually know you as Kirk until I was well into adulthood. I grew up watching you on a certain legal drama called Boston Legal. So could you give us a little look into the life of Denny Crane?
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, David E. Kelly. David E. Kelly, I guess there's another David Kelly, so the E demarks him as being different. Is a genius. He's a great writer, and unexpectedly, I think he stopped. I don't know. I guess I don't know why. He's such a talent as to why he's not writing anymore that I know. But I would go anywhere that he would write a script for. So I get invited to breakfast with David Kelly. Wow. So we're talking about it, and he says, I've written a script and a character by the name of Denny Crane. I'd like you to play it. And he said, now, he's a little bit senile. And I said, I can play that. and the longer I'm playing it, the better I can play it. The plaque, I can feel the plaque in my brain right now. So we do Boston Legal, and this wonderful cast of James Spader and the other people that were on the show. Plaque. Name me some names. Give me a name. James Spader. What? Candace Bergen. Oh, beautiful Candace Bergen. Betty White? Was Betty White on the show? I remember vividly. Betty White was on the show? Gee, I forgot Black. Talking about Betty White, we appeared on the stage, and just before I went on stage, a guy handed me a little lump of, and he said, that's an asteroid. It's 4.5 billion years old. So I came on stage, and I said to Betty, I've got a 4.5 billion year old rock. Do you remember it? So she was on it, yeah, but I mean, I've known her for years, and she's a firefighter. So, it was a wonderful cast with these wonderful scripts, and I had the best time, and the show won all kinds of awards, I won all kinds of awards, and it required me to leave my home around 5 in the morning and drive about an hour to the studio down what has been nominated as the busiest highway in America, Highway 405 that goes down past the airport. So if I got up at 5, I could make it in an hour. But if I left at 6, rush hour had begun, and it would take me 2 hours. So I'd have to leave an hour earlier than that. And then coming back, the same thing. If I got back before 10 o'clock in the evening, it would take me 2 hours to get home. So after 5 years, that wore on. So when it was canceled, I had this duality. I'm so sorry it's over, and all these wonderful people, I knew that I would never see these people again under the same circumstances. James Spader and I loved each other, and I haven't seen him since his new series, and it's the way it is in showbiz. People are you best friends forever, and then the show's over and you don't see them again. Which is part of a book that's out there right now called Leonard, in which I talk about my friendship with Leonard Nimoy. And how difficult it is for men in particular, at least this is my idea, that men in particular have trouble making friends anyway. And actors have trouble making friends because of this elusive way of working. You're there and then you're not there. So that having a friend for all those years with Leonard, whose background, both when he was growing up in Boston and I was growing up in Montreal, Canada, and then our professional lives and then our personal lives, how similar everything was. And after Star Trek was canceled, we were going our separate ways, but because of circumstances, we made all those movies, we did some appearances like this together, we were thrust in each other's company as a result of being in cars and talking, and then at night and dinner, we formed this beautiful friendship based on so many mutual things that are gone now. So I wrote the book because memory plays tricks on you, and you think, did that happen or did that not happen? So I got it down as quickly as possible to try and remember some loving things that happened in a friendship. So that's Leonard's out there now. Zero G is coming out in a week or so, so don't mistake those two. One's science fiction, the other's personal. Little sales pitch, well, next question.
Yes, my question is, how do you feel Chris Pines is doing as the new James T. Kirk?
Chris Pine? Chris Pine? God, Chris Pine. He's beautiful. He's handsome. He's tall. He's talented. He's rich. And I remember being on a horse with Patrick Stewart saying, the ship is yours. And I remember reading the line, like I'm on a horse, and I'm my horse, and I'm having fun on the horse. But I gotta say, the ship is yours, and I know that's like the end. Oh, wow. A whole era is coming to a close. It was very, very sad for me to literally give it up. And then here comes Chris in all his youthful beauty. He's wonderful, and the interesting thing for me about the Star Trek movies is that the movies I made 6 or 7 of them, I keep forgetting. And I even directed one, and I forgot that one. What was I going to say? The movies, all right, so the movies that we made. The plaque is going from here. The movies I made would make about $100 million. Sounds like a lot of money, but they cost $30 million to make. And so the rule of thumb in making movies is that it's 3 times the budget. So it works out. So the studio ostensibly made $10 million, which is all right, but not a great deal of money. No, none of those movies that I made ever got past that ceiling of about $100 million. Along comes J.J. Abrams, wonderful guy, wonderful director, who decides to make Star Trek a ride, like with all those great computer graphics, and you can't tell where the computer graphics begin and where the human beings end. It's become extraordinary. So he gives us this Star Trek ride, and the movies are making billions. So he solved the problem of getting more people in to see Star Trek. And the Star Treks are a little, may not be quite what Gene Roddenberry had imagined in terms of the characters and the way it works, but people are going to see it, and that is what the studio is aiming for. So Chris Pine, J.J. Abrams, the whole group, they're wonderful. Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to start by thanking you from the bottom of my heart for a little PSA you did many years ago called Stop It, I Can't. It was what you did for the TSA, Tourette Syndrome
A
Association.
PSA? A what?
The Tourette Syndrome Association.
The what?
Film, Stop It, I Can't.
Syndrome, yes.
I want to thank you for that.
Yes.
My question is, I was wondering if we might see any books from the Barbary Coast
The
series.
Barbary Coast?
I know you like revisiting some of your old characters with
Yeah. So I did a series, thank you so much. I did a series called The Barbary Coast. And it was on for 13 weeks, and during which I played a master of disguise. So the writers couldn't write out, you know, it was three characters a play, an episode. So that's 39, I played 39 characters ultimately. So the way we did it was, I'd go into makeup in the morning, and there would be this great makeup guy with what we call appliances. These are little rubberized noses or cheeks or mouths or almost a whole mask. And they would apply it in those days. They have better glue now, but they would apply it with sort of gasoline glue. And it would stick, because the problem with prosthetics is the edge. The edge where the skin and the edge meet has to be really tight, so you can't tell the difference. So often, somebody's wearing a nose, you can see the edge of the nose. That's bad. My son-in-law, Andrew Clement, is up for an Emmy for this very kind of work years later. It's ironic. So they would make these appliances and they feather them in, and then they put makeup on, and maybe. So this great makeup artist would create a face. That took about 3 hours. Okay, now we got a face. Then they bring in this great wardrobe person who had access to everything at Paramount. I think it was Paramount. Anyway, everything the studio had in terms of wardrobe. They had buildings 5 times this size stacked with clothes that had been used since the beginning of movies. And the wardrobe person would go in, and then she'd take a look at my face, and she'd run up to that building, and she'd grab something, some wardrobe, and then she'd come back and she'd sling it over me. And she'd go, okay, now the face and the wardrobe match. I'd go down to the set where they were waiting for me, and all right, let's go. And I had memorized whatever dialogue it was. Now I had to play a character. So based on what I looked like, I'm now a character. I'm a character. I did this very thing for a book that I wrote called Get a Life. I wrote a book trying to figure out, why are you here? Why are you here? That's what I was trying to figure out. What do you, so I was doing my due diligence. So I'd get into this character, you know, say, why are you here? And the person would say, is that you, Shatner? That's how effective playing another character was. So I would do this 3 times a day with to rip off the rubber cement, then they put on another 3 times a day. When they canceled the show after 13 shows, I was so happy. Next question.
Good morning, boss.
What?
Good morning.
What do you got in your hand?
It's a 1929 Thompson. You've seen one of these.
Jeez, man. Machine gun.
On behalf of the...
Are you allowed to carry that machine gun?
Yes, I
Wow. That's, woo.
On behalf of...
Why have you got it in the air if it's a toy? Why aren't you leveling it right at me? Not allowed to, huh?
On behalf of this syndicate, a Sigma Iota 2.
You know,
I'm authorized
this
to-
gentleman here is an ex-cop. And his whole instinct, he's ready to pounce right now. That's good. I love that.
On behalf of the syndicate, the Sigma Iota
You
2.
can point it up there. Or put the barrel in your mouth. I feel better about that, don't you? If he was sucking on it? Yeah.
On behalf of the syndicate of Sigma Iota 2, I've been authorized to do 3 things. Number 1, convey our respects for a lifetime of achievement. Nobody ever has to ask William Shatner who.
Oh, is that good?
It's good. Number 2, we convey our thanks for introducing us to the Federation. Business has never been better.
That's good.
Who do you think a community organizer from Chicago is?
Could I be a community organizer for Chicago? Absolutely. I'd organize Chicago along different lines. I don't know what that means, but that's what I
Here's my question, sir. Could you say a few things about Rod Serling and your work with the Twilight Zone?
About Rod Serling. So I did this Twilight Zone. I did 2 Twilight Zones. And when we did them, it was great. You know, we made them in about 3 days, I think. And these terrific writers, they call themselves the Green Thumb, many of them. They were kind of like a loose union, 5, 6 guys that I got to know. Richard Matheson being one, who was a great science fiction writer. And they wrote Twilight Zones. And so the one of them that I did was in a town, and I was picking up fortunes, you know, like a fortune cookie. Today will be a good day. Oh, I'd say to my wife, today's going to be a good day. And gradually these things got more and more ominous. And I guess it appealed to people wondering what the future holds. So that's been very popular. But the one that seems to be the most popular is this thing on the wing of an airplane. So, when I was shooting it, there was this little furry suit with a Czechoslovakian acrobat inside the little furry suit. And I'm thinking, he's supposed to be on the wing of a jet plane going 500 miles an hour. He's not even aerodynamic. He's a little furry Czechoslovakian acrobat. And then I was basically alone in the film and looking out, seeing him, and turning back to the stewardess, to the flight attendant, who never saw him. The best thing about that show, and it touches like the universal of if we were meant to fly, we'd have wings, so what are we doing in an airplane at 40,000 feet? But the best thing about that whole thing was after my kids saw, we'd take airplane trips going someplace. And they'd say, Daddy, do the look. Okay. I turn towards the window. Call the flight attendant. Come over here, please. And I look out the window, and then I go back and I go, Thank you, everybody.